Before the first pulse of light ever dared to break the suffocating grip of the eternal night, and long before the concept of time had a heartbeat to measure it by, there existed a state of being so absolute in its emptiness that modern language can only pale in its description. We often make the mistake of visualizing the Greek origin as a mere vacuum, a quiet space waiting to be filled, but the Greeks understood it as something far more visceral, a yawning, sentient hunger called chaos that did not merely precede existence, but actively resisted it. This was not a disorder of things, but a total absence of form, a primal womb of nothingness that eventually, through an unexplained surge of cosmic necessity, birthed the foundational pillars of reality: Gaia, the unyielding earth, and Tartarus, the dread abyss that exists as a dark reflection of the heavens. To truly grasp the story we are about to tell, you must abandon the image of the gods as statues of serene marble, and instead see them as the first survivors of a cosmic trauma, a lineage born from a void that provided no morality, no guidance, and no mercy. This is the moment where the universe stopped being an accident and became an arena, a psychological battlefield where the first pair of entities, earth and sky, entered into a union that was less a marriage and more a collision of elemental forces, setting the stage for a generational cycle of violence that would define the human condition for thousands of years to come. The psychological architecture of the Greek cosmos is built upon the catastrophic failure of the first father, Uranus, whose reign as the lord of the sky was characterized by a pathological revulsion toward the very life he helped create. Uranus looked upon his children, the towering Titans, the one-eyed Cyclopes, and the nightmare-inducing Ekatonchires with their 50 heads and 100 grasping arms, and saw not a legacy, but a mirror of his own potential obsolescence that he could not endure. In an act of primal cruelty that predates the concept of sin, he forced his monstrous offspring back into the dark, crushing interior of Gaia's womb, refusing to allow them the dignity of the light because their existence threatened his sense of absolute dominion. This is the foundational human failure of the mythic era, the obsession with maintaining a status quo by burying the future, a strategy that turned the earth itself into a prison of stone and grief. Gaia's pain was not merely physical, it was the psychological agony of a mother carrying the literal weight of her suppressed children, a pressure that eventually crystallized into a jagged weapon of flint. When her youngest son, Cronus, stepped forward to take that blade, he wasn't just committing an act of rebellion, he was initiating a cycle of conquering the conqueror that established a terrifying precedent. In this universe, power is not granted, it is stolen through the mutilation of the past. As Cronus ascended to the throne of the heavens, he established a paradoxical era that later poets would call the Golden Age, a time of supposed harmony where the seasons were static and mortals lived like gods. Yet this peace was a fragile mask for a king who was slowly being consumed by his own paranoia. The sickle he used to castrate his father remained hidden like a secret sin, a constant reminder that the throne he sat upon was built on the blood of his predecessor and could be taken by the blood of his heir. This created a strange, obsessive behavior that defines the reign of the Titans. Cronus did not merely rule, he managed his own inevitable downfall with the cold, calculated precision of a man trying to outrun his own shadow. Having heard the prophecy that he too would be overthrown by his child, he bypassed the prisons of the earth and chose a more intimate incarceration, his own body. Each time Rhea, his sister and consort, gave birth to the first generation of the Olympians, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon, Cronus opened his jaws and swallowed them whole. He was trying to archive the future, to keep the potential for rebellion in a state of suspended animation within his own gut, unaware that by trying to stop time, he was only ensuring that the eventual explosion of the new order would be absolute and devastating. The emergence of Zeus from the hidden folds of Mount Ida on the island of Crete represents the first true glitch in the matrix of the Titans' absolute rule, a moment of profound ambiguity where the survival of the cosmos depended on the deception of a mother and the strength of a secret. Raised in a cave, nursed by the goat Amalthea, and guarded by warriors whose clashing shields masked his infant cries, Zeus was the ultimate outsider, a god born in a hole to overthrow a king who sat in the clouds. This period of his life raises the most unsettling question of Greek theology. Does a leader forged in secrecy and abandonment have the capacity for true justice, or is he merely the most cunning version of the predator he seeks to replace? The pressure reaches its zenith when Zeus finally returns to his father's court disguised as a cupbearer and administers the emetic potion that forces Cronus to forth vomit the fully grown siblings who had spent an eternity aging in the dark. This was not a birth, but a resurrection of the suppressed, as the Olympians stepped out of their father's throat ready to wage a war that would tear the world asunder for 10 years, a conflict known as the Titanomachy that forced every elemental force in existence to choose between the ancient, chaotic power of the ancestors and the cold, strategic intellect of the new regime. The resolution of this war provided a powerful, albeit ambiguous, reward for the universe, a new order under Zeus that was built on the liberation of the very monsters Uranus had first buried, proving that to win a war against the past, one must weaponize the forgotten. Zeus did not win through raw strength alone. He won because he was willing to look into the abyss of Tartarus and make allies of the Cyclopes and the 100-handed ones, using the lightning they forged to strike down the Titans and cast them into the same depths they once feared. However, as Zeus sits on the throne of Olympus, the ambiguity remains like a lingering storm on the horizon. He has broken the cycle of being swallowed, but in doing so, he has created a world where the gods are defined by their appetites, their jealousies, and their constant fear of the next generation of rebels. We are left with a cosmos that is perfectly ordered on the surface, but built upon a foundation of buried giants and silenced ancestors, a mirror of the human mind, where our greatest strengths are often derived from the traumas we have managed to overcome, but never truly erase. If this descent into the visceral and psychological roots of the gods has revealed a truth you haven't heard in standard history, then you are part of the reason this channel exists. We are here to exhume the stories the world tried to swallow. Subscribe now and join us for the next chapter, because the war for the soul of history is far from over.